big warm welcome to Keith McHenry, co-founder of Food Not Bombs. So before I give the evening to Keith, I just want to let folks know, those of you that may not know, Chico Food Not Bombs serves a meal, free vegan, vegetarian meal, every Saturday, rain or shine, 12:30 at the plaza. Foods and a lot of community members that contribute all the produce that we share with the community. A couple other folks I want to thank real quick. Big shout out to the Chico Pirate Punks. They're one of our biggest cash donators. They really support us anytime we ask for anything. Occupy Chico. Big shout out to Occupy Chico. Very generous donation that made it possible for us to bring Keith in again this time. Chico Food Not Bombs. Okay, let's see, where are we going? Oh, I want to say a big thank you to Andy and Bobby from coming in from out of the area. I met these two wonderful gentlemen. You want to raise your hands in the air? Yeah. I met these two wonderful activists at Shut Down Monsanto. They're involved in a whole lot more than that, but that's where I had the pleasure of meeting them. And they came up here tonight to be a part of this, so truly, thank you. And let's see, who else? Chico Farmer, oh, Grub, another group of wonderful folks, farmers that really support our effort. Cultivating Community, the gardening projects. Mary Brosnan, my sister, who just moved out here recently and has not missed the Food Not Bombs yet, and now she's taken over the coordinating the Chico Food Not Bombs garden. We also have our own garden. And Jellyfish, because Joanna, because anytime, I know she's here somewhere, anytime I ask for anything, she's like right there. And she's been with us right from the beginning. She gave us our first donation of food supplies when we first got started. So, and a big thank you again to everybody for being here. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Keith McHenry.
Thank you. That's so nice. Thanks everyone for coming out. That's so cool. So, since I was last here, a lot has definitely happened with Food Not Bombs. And so the big thing was Occupy. And so in that, the Food Not Bombs was really involved in helping provide meals at hundreds of Occupies all over the world, including Budapest and Moscow and St. Petersburg, Russia, and of course all throughout the United States. And I'm sure they played a role here in helping make sure there was food at Occupy Chico. And then I had the opportunity to help Food Not Bombs in New York City after Sandy. And we set up a kitchen there in Brooklyn, and we helped provide food on the far Rockaways, Coney Island. Staten Island Food Not Bombs was actually right on the beach at the time of the hurricane, and their house was like damaged, but they were able to regroup and provide some of the only meals happening in Staten Island. And Long Island Food Not Bombs was preparing at that time for the world's largest vegan Thanksgiving, which they do every year, where they provide over groceries and dinner for over 1,000 people at the Hempstead train station. But their plans got interrupted by Sandy, and they became instead involved in making sure people had all the relief food and supplies that they needed. And then after that, I went down to Mexico, and I was visiting Food Not Bombs chapters down there. And it was really amazing the stuff they were doing, because the election had just happened. Hundreds of people have been arrested at the inauguration in Mexico City. Many of them were their friends, so they were organizing to try to get them out of jail. And they're also organizing against the narco-terrorism war that was happening in Mexico. And the furthest south I went was down to San Cristobal. And what was remarkable about that was we did a presentation like this the first night, and people in the audience wanted to get busy right away doing Food Not Bombs. So we organized a meal the next day. We went to the markets, collected the food, and we're starting to prepare the meal when 3 people from France came by. And they said, we've been seeing the Food Not Bombs logo all over the town, and we were really surprised because we thought Food Not Bombs was only in Indonesia. And that's where we found them, and we've been cooking with food not bombs all over the islands, and we're so surprised it would be in Mexico too. And it turned out they were from Bordeaux, and there was a new food not bombs chapter in their community in France that they had not even heard of. And they were amazed that this was not just an Indonesian phenomenon, but that it was actually a global phenomenon. So around that same time, I was preparing for a tour of the Philippines and Indonesia, and I'd been invited to speak at the Green and Black Forum in Manila, where anarchists and activists were going to talk about response to climate change, both like organizing to stop things like coal mining and so on, but also how to do disaster relief. And food not bombs had been involved in a number of disaster relief efforts, including the tsunami that hit Indonesia, Katrina, where we provided the meals for 8 months in New Orleans and in 20 other cities in Louisiana, Mississippi, and also had just finished doing Sandy relief. So I ended up going over to the Philippines and Indonesia, and I was amazed at what I discovered. And it turned out in the Philippines we had groups in at least 26 cities that had been active for since around 2001. And some of the projects they had done, like building a bridge in a neighborhood because of the persistent floods that were happening, organizing Occupy Manila, where they had over 300 people show up and provide the meals for the protesters. All kinds of, lots of actions against mining, gold mining, coal mining, timber operations, pollution of coral reefs, actions against the militarization of society because of resistance of the Moro people or New People's Army and so on. And then I went to Indonesia, and then I was even more shocked there. Because found at one point in one community, and they're talking about, yeah, there's 100 food not bombs chapters at least in Indonesia, and they start counting off all the groups in Java, and then they, oh yeah, so no, I think we're wrong. It's more than 100. And then they were listing all the islands, and I was just like, oh, I can't believe there's all this food not bombs in this country. And I've been saying there's probably 1,000 chapters in the world, but to show up in one country and add another 100 to that belief was pretty phenomenal. So on these tours, I would tell the story of how food not bombs was getting started. And there's three things that became food not bombs. Originally, I was a produce worker. I was 22 years old. I was a produce worker at Bread and Circus, which was one of the first commercial grocery stores that sold organic food in the Boston area. And the other store was Erewhon at that time over in Brookline. And so I would, every day I'd be feeling horrible that there's all this wonderful organic food, but it was starting to wilt or it just didn't look right. And people weren't buying it because people weren't used to the irregularity of organic produce. So I asked my the manager of the store if I could start taking the stuff, instead of throwing it in the trash, take it down to the housing projects a few blocks away from the store. And so he was cool with that, and I started taking the produce down every afternoon. And at the housing projects on Portland Avenue, I got to talking to the people, and we're going, what's this brand new modern building across the street from your buildings which are collapsing? They go, oh, that's where they're designing nuclear weapons. And it turned out it was Draper Laboratory, and they were designing the guidance system for intercontinental ballistic missiles so that they could strike cities in the Soviet Union from the United States. And so that gave us the idea, wow, here's people needing food on one side of the street, and people on the other side of the street looking down at them from their desks making $100,000 a year, and somehow there's no connection here between what's going on. And that gave us the idea to have the name Food Not Bombs. And so the next thing that happened is I was also an art student and at Boston University, and I had to take academic classes, and one of the classes I signed up for was American History with Howard Zinn.
Oh, wow.
And so he would start talking about how he was going up to Seabrook, New Hampshire to stop the nuclear power station there. And so at one point I got a bunch of my classmates together and we started an affinity group and we went up to the protest. And on May 24th, 1980, one of my friends, Brian Feigenbaum, was arrested. And he was a law student at BU. And we were very concerned that if he got convicted, he wouldn't be able to be a lawyer as a result. And so we started to organize a support team for him, our affinity group. And one of the things we thought we needed was to raise money, so we started doing bake sales. And we'd be out on the streets doing the bake sales, and we'd make like $4, $5, and we're like, wow, this will never be a defense fund at all. And like many college students, we had a lot of ways of making a living, and one of the things we had was this old Dodge van, 1976 Dodge van. And so we had a moving company called Smooth Move. And we're moving this family, and they're throwing away a poster that said, wouldn't it be a beautiful day if the schools had all the money they needed and the Air Force had to hold a bake sale to buy a bomber? So we go, oh, that's a great idea. We go and we get ourselves some military uniforms from Central Square Army Navy Surplus. We make our little general badges out of cardboard, like we'd seen on TV and stuff. And then we go down and we got our poster leaned against the table, and we got our baked goods, and we found a bolt, and we put that on the table and say, hey, we've already bought enough, sold enough baked goods to buy a bolt. We're getting close. Help us out. And the people would go by going, man, you kind of look like hippies dressed as military people, not really like... Oh no, we're really generals. We're down our luck. We're joined by honor. And then eventually, we'd admit that the story was we give them a flyer about Seabrook and the nuclear arms race and stuff. And while we didn't really make any more money, we did meet a lot more people and talk to a lot more people about Seabrook and about the nuclear arms race and so on. And then this gave us the idea to do more food-related street performances, and we had found out that the Bank of Boston had the same board members as the Public Service Company of New Hampshire, which was building Seabrook Nuclear Power Station, and that the board of directors also of the Bank of Boston were the board of directors of Babcock and Wilcox, which was building Seabrook Nuclear Power Station. And they were also on the board of Raytheon Missile Systems and these other nuclear contractors, and that they were basically lending themselves money without any public oversight. And we were like, wow, that sounds a lot like how we've learned about how the Great Depression started. And so we got this idea, we take some of the produce that we were taking to the projects and we divert it and make a bunch of soup. And we'd dress up as hobos, and we'd get like little, like a handkerchief and tie it up with our belongings in it on a little stick and everything.